Okay, great. That's 7 o'clock. We will kick it off. So thank you, everyone. I see we've got some attending from Rhode Island, from Chicago, Georgia, Puerto Rico. So thanks so much for coming. We're super, super excited. Thrive has been such a great relaunch. For those of you who don't know, Thrive was previously our one-day event hosted once a semester, but we really wanted to bring so much more programming for you guys, our members. So it's been relaunched as a webinar series happening every other Wednesday right here at this time. So we're super excited today to have Cindy Schwartz with us from the AIA to do a bit of advocacy training with you all. Super, super important to know how to talk to your leaders and your local government. So this was our most requested programming from grassroots to bring back. So many people were bummed that they missed out on it. So we wanted to give you all an opportunity to have that same training too. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Cindy.
Hello, everyone. It's nice to see you. It is nice to see you. Last time I did this, I couldn't see people on screen. So this is kind of fun. And I'm going to do my presentation, but at the end, we'll have some time for Q&A. So we'll be able to talk to each other a little bit. I am Cindy Schwartz. I'm the managing director at AIA for Advocacy and Operations. I have over 35, I'm embarrassed to say 35 years of advocacy experience. I have worked on political campaigns ranging from Democratic congressmen to local, state, and council races. I've worked in states all across the country, from California to Washington to New Jersey. I cut my teeth in New Jersey politics. Consider that a badge of honor. I have worked for a number of nonprofit organizations. I was a senior vice president at the League of Conservation Voters. I was executive director of the Maryland League of Conservation Voters, so I've done state and federal. I worked for the the International Campaign to Ban Landmines. I've done some international work focused at getting the United States government to join the Ban Mine Treaty. If you don't know what it is, look it up, it's important. I have worked for the city of Baltimore, the Port of Baltimore, and I started off my career in DC advocacy at NARAL, the National Abortion Reproductive Rights Action League. I am, if you have a guest, a Democrat and a liberal, although I am absolutely politically, professionally bipartisan, and believe in the power of advocating on all sides of an issue. So happy to explain more of that later if you're interested. I have a long and storied career. I came to AIA about 5 years ago, and my job is essentially to promote advocacy programs at AIA so that our 95,000 members are advocating for the profession, and more recently, working on solutions legislatively to combat the climate crisis and racial inequity in the profession and writ large. So I'm going to start and share my screen here. There we go. So we're going to talk about taking action and making your voice heard. I got to make sure that I control. There we go. We're going to explore why being an advocate matters and why you need to get involved, why it's important. And then at the end of this, I want to give you some sort of how-tos on how to construct an effective message that resonates, specifically how to introduce yourself and how to construct a quick elevator speech so that you can, in a real hot minute, get your point across and talk about why that's important. I want to start with, though, a little bit of big picture and a little bit of context. The world has changed. That's sort of obvious, but it's also completely true. And it got doing. And that is in the sort of the big picture, politics and media. I can tell you that I have lived through the last 30 years of politics. And an example, the way we talk about being gay in public and being a person who is gay, right? That's completely changed and completely different than it was 30 years ago when I started in politics. So if you live long enough, you can see change. And as Martin Luther King would say, the arc of history bends towards justice. I personally believe that to be true. I believe I've seen it. And I know that if you engage, it makes a difference because the world has changed, but the world is changing and it's changing all the time. Media has changed. The way that you guys communicate is so completely different than the way that I was communicating when I was your age. And it's not a little bit different, it's a light years different. And I think we're still trying to understand politically, especially in the political realm, we're still trying to understand how to actually grapple with that, control it, and really use it for good. In the more immediate, COVID-19 has really changed the world. From the architecture profession, I mean, just some simple things like the glut of office space that's going to be around because people have decided that, wow, we can work remotely, to people deciding that, wow, I can work from home and I do like that. And wow, there's a real life balance with that. So that's just a simple thing. But I also think if you look at the bigger picture, COVID-19 has changed the world. We're not going back to where we were. I don't know that we know what that looks like yet, but I know it's going to be different and it's changing. And all of those things have impacted the economy, jobless rates, and the jobless rates and the impact on particularly recent grads, I think is something that concerns you guys greatly and your particular cohort and generation. I know I'm living that in my own life. My son is graduated in the summer, last summer, graduated from the University of Albany and is trying to find a job. And it's really hard to do as a recent grad. And as somebody who's looking for that first job, to find an entry-level position is just really challenging. So lots of topsy-turvy, lots of things have changed. So what that means is that there's some opportunity out there. In the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. I think that's a really important statement, right? There's two ways to look at the world. It's either happening to you or you're doing something to make things happen for you. I think one of the things that is key in terms of the opportunities is that we are literally living through a generational shift. As it stands now, the boomers, people in my generation, I'm at the tail end of the baby boom, people in my generation are descending. We're heading out of the workforce. In the extreme, we're dying because we're getting old. But we're, some of us are, looking forward to retirement. But we are descending. We are moving out of the picture. So what that means is that the Gen X and the millennials, they're in power right now. They are having an enormous impact on politics and just the economy and the way we live and jobs and careers. They're having a huge impact on that. So where does that leave you? That leaves Gen Z as ascendant. That means that you are coming up. And that means, more importantly, that the opportunities for you are right in front of you. You are getting ready to start to head into them headlong. So the question is how do you capitalize on the opportunities? Well, maybe the first question is, what are the opportunities, right? So at the highest level, you guys are the last great hope for saving the planet. And I'm not being at all overly dramatic about that. The baby boom generation pretty well screwed things up. I mean, the industrial age and then moving into the booms. I mean, it's not all us, but we didn't help it along any, right? The millennials and Gen Z are going to have to address it right now to live in it. But you guys are the ones who are going to be on the front line in the first generation of folks who are having children who are going to be living in a new world that is affected by climate change, right? You're the generation of children that come from your generation. Wow, I don't even know what that looks like, right? It's So you have an opportunity to literally save the planet. It is not an understatement. The last few years have really uncovered racial inequities in a way that I think a lot of folks, particularly in my sort of cohort, that's sort of the liberal, democratic, enlightened crew, we all, we know that racial inequity exists. We haven't done near enough to address it. I think that there are things that are happening now, but the generation that's dealing with this now is in turmoil, right? It's a lot of push and pull. It's making sausage. They're trying to sort of impact these things. Your generation is the first one that's really living and living racial equity in a way that generations before you, millennials and Gen X's, have not done. It's from my, again, the arc bends towards justice. It's really true. And when you look at the generation that's coming up and views on gender and views on race, it gives me hope that there's possibilities, because eventually, I think I said this at the last training, eventually the old white guys, they're just moving out, right? They are seriously descendant. Your generation is moving up, and your very being is going to change things. Your very existence of new ideas, new thoughts, new ways of sort of viewing the world, viewing yourself in the world, and viewing what you can do. Your very existence will make change. So that's just an enormous opportunity. You guys have an opportunity to change how government works for you. Government is always a reflection of the people who put them in office. So, we can say lots of analysis about the Trump administration and what that meant and what it looked like. But it is a reflection of society. Maybe not the entire society, but it is a reflection. As your generation becomes ascendant, government will look more like you. It will begin to act more like you. And that provides enormous opportunities for other things, like addressing the student debt crisis. It might not help you now, but eventually we're going to get there, because it's so paramount to your generation. It's so endemic to the way that you have to live your lives, because you've been saddled, you will be in some cases, but saddled with debt that it will eventually get solved, right? Because your generation is ascendant and will eventually be taking on those issues. And then as you move into becoming architects and becoming licensed, you have the opportunity to make the profession of architecture what you want it to be, to be the profession that you want to work in, that reflects your values and the things that drive you and drive your passions. And that goes down even deeper into things like encouraging more gender equity and setting up a profession that actually allows for the flexibility that's required to actually make that happen. The key to all of this is what are you passionate about, and the things that you're passionate about. If you advocate for them, you can really drive change. And that's really that's where I want to sort of jump off now and sort of talk about how do you advocate, and why do we advocate, and what does it even mean? Well, I mean, at its core, advocating is something you do every day. You advocate for grades with your teachers. You advocate for maybe more money from your parents. You advocate for, maybe you joined a lobby day and you advocated with your state legislature because you would want to, there was a particular bill that was important. There's lots of reasons that we advocate all the time. It is really no more than just being persuasive and working for the things that you care about. Architects, they they advocate for health, safety, and welfare. Part of it's endemic in the profession. It's important to what they do, but they have to advocate for it, right? And then there's the issues that you care about, like racial equality, climate change, student debt, et cetera. So, so let's drive this down to a little bit about the politics and the legislation and what's happening. So why should you engage with legislators? I think there are a lot of folks out there who believe that, you know, legislators don't really do much and I can't really talk to them. I don't understand what they do. Maybe it feels too hard. Well, the reason that you should do it is because the decisions that get made at the local, federal, state level overlap not only with the profession, but with everything that you do. Governments regulate the world. They regulate the way your street is designed. They regulate the growth of your community, where a store gets put, all the way up to issues like being, pro-choice issues or climate change issues, whatever it is, government is in the middle. From a personal perspective, the reason to engage with legislators is that it's good for you, it's good for relationships, and it's good for business, right? I say this to architects all the time, that if you build relationships with legislators, that's good for business, right? If they know that they have an architect in the district, one, maybe you can become a subject matter expert, but you can also use that as a way to promote your own business. So there's a lot of reasons, personally and from making the world a better place, reasons to do this. They are the power. They are the ones who are making the decisions about what happens. So it's a good thing to go and meet with them, but do they really care what architects think? Do they want to hear from you? The short answer is, yeah, they do. They want to hear from you, and there's a number of reasons why. One, as a constituent, and you're usually a constituent if you're meeting with a legislator, you're from their district. As a constituent, you carry information about their district that they don't always get. This is particularly true at the federal level, where legislators, they spend a lot of time in DC, they spend a lot of time outside of the district. And so it's very easy for them to sort of lose touch with their constituents. And when politicians lose touch with their constituents, they start to stray. And when they start to stray, people get unhappy with them, and then they don't vote for them, or voter turnout drops. And so maintaining strong ties to the district is really, really important for legislators. You are the pulse of what's going on in their district. And if they're only hearing from folks in my generational cohort, well, then they're getting a skewed viewpoint, right? Because the baby boomer cohort isn't not exactly aligned with what the things that you want, right? Making sure that they understand your values and what you want is really important. You are educated and trained, eventually you'll be a trained professional, but at the moment you are training to be an educated professional. And what that means from a legislator's perspective is that you actually bring a set of information that they don't have, right? They don't understand what it means to have a building that is designed in a certain way and how that affects a human being in the building, right? That's a piece of knowledge that you have that's very specific to the profession of architecture. That's really interesting to someone who is a legislator. Building a relationship and a rapport with a legislator, and they know that you're educated, what that means is that over the course of your engagement with this person, you go to a couple meetings, you sit down, you write them a letter, they begin to understand that there are educated people out there who they can tap into. So the best organizations have people dedicated to legislators as point people, because legislators need that touch point. And that's good for the profession, that's good for AIA, and that's good for you guys. As a member of AIAS to a legislator, you represent more than the sum of your parts. You are 3,500 members in AIAS, when you say, hey, I'm with the American Institute I'm with the students, the architectural students, then they go, oh, that's kind of cool. So there must be more of them in my district, or there must be more of them across the country. That's really cool. I didn't know that was there. Now they know. And you matter to them because you represent more than just you. You've got this sort of army of people standing behind you. And that's really important. That is very important outside of the architectural context. That's really important at the local level of politics. So when I was executive director of the Maryland League of Conservation Voters, and I would say I represent 7,000 environmentalists in the state of Maryland, I will tell you that meant something to Maryland representatives. That was a powerful cudgel in a lot of ways, but it was a powerful thing that I held, and I used that to great effect. So what are the ways that you can engage in the legislative process? Well, the first thing to do is to get involved. And there's 4 pieces that you really need to do to be engaged. And I'm going to eventually I'm going to walk through each of these, but you need to stay informed. You need to get connected. You need to find groups that fit your passion. And you need to join AIS's advocacy activities. And AIAs too, if you're interested, you can get involved in AIA's advocacy activities. So staying informed, what does that mean? It's an overused cliche, but it is absolutely 100% true. Knowledge is power. The more you know, the better off you are. The more conversant in an issue you are, the better equipped you are. What does that mean from engaging in the process? What that means is learn about government. If government has control over the things that you care about, then you should learn about it, and you should be engaged with it, and you should understand it. The more you know about government, elections, and political leaders, the deeper your understanding of the process, the more strategic you can be, the more equipped you will be, and the better your messaging will be. Know when your city and state local governments meet. So know what they are working on, know when they're meeting, and know how they meet, right? And here's something to think about. A lot of folks, they don't know this, right? And they don't know it because they just didn't take the time to go on and Google it, because honestly, that's really all you have to do to sort of get a sense of what's going on. And what that lack of knowledge does is it creates a barrier, right? It creates an obstacle for people because they don't know, well, I don't know when the session is. Well, I mean, if you just start to educate yourself about it, talk to people about it, learn about it, you will break down the obstacles that get in the way of you feeling empowered to go and talk to your legislators. The other thing to be in tune with is elections. Elections matter. We've all learned that the hard way over the last 5 years, right? Elections have consequences and elections matter. Understanding when the elections are in your area are really important because they control the balance of power politically. That will have huge impact on the issues you care about, and it will have an impact on your personal legislator and whether or not you like them or not, whether or not they stay or whether they get, right? So understanding elections is key to understanding the legislative process. They are inextricably linked. Whether you like it or not, it's just the way it is. And then the last thing is, stay informed about the issues you care about. If climate change is something you care about, find the website, find the group, follow them. Be engaged in that and know what it is and learn about the things that you the things that you care about. Because what that learning will do, that staying informed on those issues, that will lead you towards the path to activism. So how do you do that? Follow your legislators on social media, local news, and the blogs. That's obvious, but not everybody does it. Probably your generation more than others that I speak with do this. I know lots and lots of folks my age who don't follow their legislators. They're not even, other than Facebook, they're not even following them. You know, they don't do Twitter. People in my generation, right? Not, some of them do, I do. But it's important to know where they are, because those platforms are where legislators are telling you what they think and what they you should understanding sort of where they are and what they think is important is really key, because it will tell you how to interact with them, right? Knowing if they're with you on an issue. If somebody's on an issue, you don't need to go and talk to them about why they need to get on the issue, right? You need to go and talk to them about how they can talk to other people to get on, to come with you. You can talk to them about how to capitalize on their power. And you can help them by supporting them, because you're like, oh, I know you're with me. I know you follow the same issues that I do. I know you care about climate change, for example. I'm going to make a contribution to you, right? So follow them. Another thing to do if you really want to get engaged is to get involved in political campaigns. If you've never done it, it's a lot of fun and you should do it. Every person, I believe personally, every person should involve himself in some kind of a campaign some way at some point in your life. It will be fun for you. You will meet fun people, and you will see firsthand the democratic process. And it will make you feel better about the democratic process, because honestly, when you talk to people at a door, for example, if you knock on a door, you go and you chat with somebody about an issue you care about and say, hey, I'm out here for this person, they're going to engage with you, because they're going to be like, oh, wow, that was really cool. That person, look at this nice young person out here doing this thing. And they'll engage with you, and you'll see that you can actually connect with people in a way that perhaps you haven't before, right? And politics is a personal thing for people. So, you get cranky people too, but by and large, you get really good people. And then last, follow the groups who are working on the issues that you care about. I can't stress this strong enough. I've worked for lots of organizations, and I will tell you that volunteers and members of organizations, they're the lifeblood of those organizations. And if it's not for people supporting them and getting involved with them and caring about them, and that those causes don't go anywhere. So if there's something you care about, follow it, get engaged with it. And when you have the opportunity to do that, support them, volunteer with them, go out and support them with checks if you can. It's really important to do that, particularly with nonprofit groups, because of all ilks, right? Not just the lefty liberal ones, all of them. It is their lifeblood, and they are out there, and that's honestly, that's where the passion is. If you want to go connect your passion to someone else's passion, so that you can go and have a multiplier effect on your activism, follow those groups and go get engaged with them, because there's a lot of really, really good stuff happening. Follow the group. As I said, follow the group that find a group that fits your passion, and then follow them, donate, volunteer, whether they're Republicans, Democrats, the environment, racial equity. There's all kinds of groups out there for everything. Go with them. And then there are the AIA and the AIS activities. I always want to put a plug in that because we're out there doing stuff, right? AIA has helped AIS with its lobby days in the past. We love doing it. We love getting you guys up to Capitol Hill. It's always a lot of fun for us, and it's really fun for the members conference. Obviously, they love it. We have, at the federal level, we have ARCAPAC. We have the Political Action Committee. And ARCAPAC is the only political action committee out there fighting for architects. So it's really important, and it's doing really good political work. We have the Architects Action Alert. If you haven't already done it, you can text AIA to 40649 and get on our list, and we'll send you out, periodically. If there's something important happening, we'll send out action alerts and the rest of it. And I assume AIS has a government advocacy of some kind committee. Getting engaged at that level is a good thing to do as well. So you've gone to the trouble of getting informed, and you got connected, you joined a group, you're all excited. you're getting ready to go and have a meeting with somebody. Now what? So now we're going to talk about how to communicate your passion. And this is really a sort of a separate sort of a training, and it connects to a worksheet, which Karma, if you remind me, I will send you a worksheet that we have that goes with this training that you can send out to the group if you like. And it's just a step-by-step fill in the blanks that has a set of questions associated so that you can develop your own messages. So I can give you that little backup on the back of this. So when it comes to advocacy messages, there are basically three types. There are messages that motivate. You're moving your supporters or a legislator to champion an issue. They're already with you, but you got to get them, you got to motivate these people to go out there and carry your water. I need you to get those 10 people to go knock on doors. I need you to come with me and lobby this particular member of Congress because we need to get them to co-sponsor bill, whatever. So you are motivating somebody. Another type of advocacy message is to persuade. So you're a member of the public, maybe the media, maybe a member of Congress, and maybe you're on the fence and you're not exactly sure. Maybe it's a new issue, but I need to get you to join my team. I need you on my side because this is really important. So I'm going to persuade you to come to my side. And then the last is to counter. And that is, of course, not to always to change, because, you know, a lot of times a person just, they don't agree with you, so might as well just move on. They don't agree with you. But there are times, particularly with the media, where you might need to counter, have a counter message, where you go against somebody who opposes your position. So when you're developing a message, you need to think about the type of message that you are trying to convey. And if you think about it, I mean, even in the way that I talked about to motivate or to persuade or to counter, right? Each of those requires different words, different tones, and a different approach. And just like if you're trying to, you know, you alter the way you speak to individuals, you need to alter the way you speak to the type of message you're trying to get across. The key here, though, is that within your messages that you are developing, that your central theme is consistent. So I might be persuading you to join a bill, or I might be motivating you to go talk to somebody about a bill. And I might be saying, no, what you think about that bill is not right. I'm going to counter that. In all of those instances, I'm still talking about the bill. So having consistency inside of your message will help you, one, be clear and concise. So the other thing to think about when you are constructing your message is to know your audience. Is it a person? Is it a group? Are you speaking to a member? You need to be really clear about what it is that you're trying to do, who they are. And when I say who they are, I mean, do they have power? Why do you know, what is it about them that you need to talk to them? Understanding who they are, what do they bring to the table? Are they a deciding vote? Are they with you? Are they against you? Sort of that kind of stuff. Always understand where people are on your issue. Are they opposing your bill, or do they support your bill, or are they on the fence? Always just have a sense of where they are. And if you don't know that intuitively, that's where you do your research. Go dig around on Google, look for other things, look at past voting patterns. There's all kinds of things that you can do to sort of suss out where you believe a person could be. And that will help you fine tune what you're trying to say. And if you can, figure out what motivates them. Why do they care about this? If you're speaking to a woman who is my age, they might and they happen to have kids, and you're talking about climate change, perhaps understanding, perhaps talking to them from the perspective of the future generations and children is a way to go. So understand what motivates them. Don't guess. Try and understand what it is. The key here with all of these pieces is that different people respond to different cues. If you hear nothing about what I'm saying right now, the one thing that you need to listen and hear me say is start where they are, not where you are. When you're talking to someone to persuade them to counter or to motivate them, you need to understand what it is that they need to hear, not what you want them to hear. It's really, really, really important in political communication and frankly in life, right? I mean, understand what motivates people, and that will help you speak to them. So start where they are, not where you are. You can always get to you, but start where they are. It helps people open their ears. So once they've opened their ears, because you started where they are, you need to be clear and concise. Why is that? You need to be clear and concise, succinct, because they need to understand what it is that you're trying to get, right? They need to know what you want. The act of being clear and concise and crafting a message will help you be really clear about what it is that you want. I can't tell you how many times I have listened to advocates having conversations that they're trying to persuade someone and talk themselves out of a position because they weren't really sure what they were asking, or to be really unclear about the way that they were getting around to their ask because they just hadn't actually thought about constructing a message that was concise. So the act of actually going through this mechanism of trying to sort out a message will help you be really clear about what it is you're trying to get at. And when you do that, it will make it more difficult for people to counter your argument. Again, this is in the political context, in the legislative persuasion context. Your goal is to have such a strong argument that it makes it really hard for people to punch a hole, right? And then the other thing is it makes it, if you have a really clear and concise message, it makes it easier for other people to carry your water, right? If I'm out there persuading people and I want them to go out there and talk to 10 other people, I better be really clear about what it is I'm asking them to do and to say to those 10 people, right? I want my message to be as clear. I want their message to be clear. So I have to make it concise and simple and cogent, and it's something that people can grab and understand. And then the last thing is that you just don't always have a lot of time. This is particularly true with legislators. I have literally had meetings with legislators while I was walking down a hallway, where I caught them and I got them and we're just chatting and we're talking. And I had better have my 15-second elevator speech so I can tell them exactly what I need and get it across just like that. So now I'm going to talk about the two things that you need to construct when you are developing a message. The first is how to introduce yourself. Now, that seems really obvious, right? Like, hi, I'm Cindy. But there are actually elements that you want to make sure you include inside of your introduction. You want to make sure that they know, this is for legislators, you want to make sure that they know that you're a constituent. You vote for them. That's really important. You want to make sure that you're an educated or going to be an educated professional because you have expertise. You have a point of view and an opinion that is important. And potentially you could be a resource to them. You want to make sure they know you're with AIAS or whatever group you happen to be with, because again, you're more than the sum of your parts. You are there representing other people. So here's just a quick sample that I did. Hi, I'm Cindy Schwartz. It's so nice to meet you. I live in your district. I live in an apartment in Silver Spring over on Belvedere Boulevard. Yeah, I'm an architecture student and I go to the University of Maryland. I'm a member of the American Institute of Architecture Students, and we have over 3,500 members, many of them right here in the state of Maryland. So what did I do there? I said, hey, I'm a constituent. And I can't read what that one says. It says, hi, I'm an educated and trained professional, and that I am with AIA and I am more than the sum of my parts. So as folks who are eventually going to be looking for jobs and meeting with people, remember this, because, and it doesn't always have to just be I'm a constituent, but what I'm trying to do with a legislator in that case is I'm trying to make a connection with them, right? Figure out how to introduce yourself to people in a way that helps you make a personal connection to somebody, right? I'm Cindy Schwartz. It's so nice to meet you. I live in your district. So we live near each other. Isn't that cool, right? I live on Belvedere Boulevard. Oh, you live on Belvedere? Oh, that's my Holy Cross Hospital. That's awesome, right? Like all of a sudden, I made a connect by making that personal connection with them. From a legislative perspective, when I make that connection, they're going to remember me, right? They look me in the eye. We talk about Belvedere Boulevard. The next time I see that legislator, I will guarantee you they'll say, you live over by Belvedere, right? So I'm making a personal connection. That gives this little introduction here, gives you a hook that they can grab onto, because what they're trying to do, and you want to give them the ability, is they're trying to figure out what's the connection that they have to you, right? Politicians, particularly politicians, are very social beings. And they want to, their stock in trade is often their ability to be social, to understand the district, to know how to make those connections. And if they can make a quick personal connection with you and remember it, that's gold for them. You're giving them the ability to do that. And that will serve you well in all sorts of areas of your life. So once you do your intro, now you've got your message, your key elements. And there are 4 questions that you need to address. And these are in the handout that Karma can send you guys. These are the pieces that we go through in a little bit more depth, and we tell you how to answer, give you some pointers on how to answer these questions. But the 4 things that you need to address are, what's the point? Why does it matter? And again, why does it matter to them, right? Or to the district, not to you, right? It's nice that you have an opinion about it, but what matters is what they do with what you give them, right? That's the key. What are you offering? And what do you want your audience to take away? What's the ask? I'm gonna move, sorry about this, I have to move my little. Okay. So, sample message. The historic tax credit is a common sense approach to stimulating the economy and addressing climate change. We use the historic tax credit program to incentivize development, put people back to work, and invest in already built buildings to reduce carbon. This infusion of jobs and capital and heightened awareness of the impact of carbon on the environment is desperately needed. The Historic Revitalization Act, SB 68, will encourage investment in restoring historic buildings, create jobs, and reduce carbon. Please co-sponsor SB 68 and invest in our future. Now, that's a really long-winded kind of way to talk to somebody, but by constructing this message, you're going to get the 4 main points that you try to get across, and you're going to be able to eventually get them in your brain and be able to rattle them off like that, right? And this is good. This is something that could be used in a paragraph, in a Facebook post, for example, or shortened and then tweeted, right? This could be the beginning of a white paper, right? That you just take those 4 points and expand on. And the 4 points are, what's the point? The point is that it's a common sense approach to stimulating the economy and addressing climate change. That's the point, right? Why does this matter? Because it's going to be an infusion of jobs and capital, and it's going to bring heightened awareness to the impact of carbon on the environment. What's the solution? The the SB 68, this bill. If you do this, I'm giving you something. I'm telling you, if you support this bill, that's going to give us the ability to answer these questions. And what's the ask? Please co-sponsor, right? So those 4 points are all inside of that piece. What's important is that constructing that part, that taking those 4 pieces, the point, the why it matters, the solution, and the ask, that you can take each of those and expand them, just like you would a paper you were writing, expand on them, and then create the white paper. But the flow, right? The point, the why it matters, the solution, and the ask, that using that formula will help you very quickly start to be able to formulate clear and concise messages. And with that, I will get ready to answer some questions, and I will offer just a little bit of advice from a 30-year veteran. One is take the long view. Politics is about building relationships, and it takes time. And you should give yourself time to learn about the issues and to think about what it is that you want to be engaged in. But take the time and be willing to put the time in. And again, I will say that if you live long enough, you see change, right? It really does happen. I know sometimes it probably feels like, wow, things don't happen fast enough. But in the course of 30 years, I can tell you the world has changed a lot. I've actually lived it. And in some cases, I could very proudly say I was part of some of the change. And that feels really good. And that's something to work towards. Be proud of the expertise that you bring to the table. It's an asset. A lot of times people feel like, well, I'm an architect. I'm not a politician. I don't understand that. Or, well, I'm just a student. What do I know? I'm not a legislator. I don't deal with these issues. I don't really want to talk about them. But you have expertise and you have passion. And those are 2 things that are just hugely important. One, passion drives your desire, but your expertise fuels that, right? It gives you something to be out there promoting and using for good. Demonstrate your passion. If you talk to someone in a way that's just really sort of clinical and is really fact-driven, that can be really powerful information. But if you talk to somebody and you are giving them information that is fact-driven, but it is backed up by passion, you make a difference. And people will follow your passion. Nobody follows facts. Everybody follows passion. People follow people that they believe are leaders. And so if you demonstrate that, you can bring people with you. Be clear, concise, and get to the point. I struggle with this for 30 years, being clear, because I'm a little verbose and I like to talk. But it is important. Be clear, be concise, and get to the point. Talk to people, not at them. Start where they are, not where you are. Be prepared and be accurate. Have fun. Have fun. Politics is fun. So with that, I guess I can answer some questions. Let me see if I can turn this thing off. There we go. And if you could go on camera, if you're going to ask questions, that'd be great, so I could see you.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, thank you so much, Cindy, for that presentation. Please feel free to just come off mute and ask your question.
I would love to know how has lobbying and kind of, I guess, advocating for these types of issues been in the past year when things have been virtual. And I know in the past we've done like a student hill day, but obviously it's really hard to get in-person meetings now. How has that changed? Have you been able to engage as much? What's it like now?
It's really different, but I don't know. like all things, you just adapt, right? If you care enough about something, you'll figure out a way. I will say we just AIA just had a lobby day on Capitol Hill that was all virtual, and we had over 600 people meeting with legislators, 48 legislators from 48 states across the country, over 350 legislative meetings. So it's possible. It doesn't, I think that, you know what I think this underscores? The fact that politicians want to talk to constituents. It's really important. And it's important for people to understand that, because I think it would be very easy for folks to just say, oh, well, we can't go meet with them, so I guess they're not doing anything. Well, you know what? I don't know about you guys, but I have things I want to say. So I have things I want them to do, and I have things that I want them to hear from me. So, where there's a will, there's a way. It is different. It requires a little bit nimbleness, right? We've been doing a lot of bob and weaving over the last year, trying new things, and trying not to overload people with email, and but it's all doable, because it's really not that different. The skills are the same.
When you are advocating, I don't know if advocating is the right word, but when you're advocating in opposition of something, do you follow the same approach to kind of the presentation you laid out, or is there some other tips and tricks that are useful, especially from maybe a student's point of view?
No, it would be exactly the same construction, right? And it's just that you need to, when you're opposing something, you need to make sure that you are very clear about what your opposition points are. So you really, you need to not only construct why it's bad and why you think it's bad, but you need to really dig in on what the other side is saying. Could be other sides, right? Doesn't, not one, but you need to be very clear about what they're saying, and you need to construct your message around that piece. Because again, start where they are, right? If where they are is that they're hearing that, this thing is good for this, it's good for business, it'll make people money, and you're like, yeah, but it's not really that good, because it's gonna, be bad for the environment, it's gonna be bad for children, it's gonna, whatever it's gonna be. You need to be really clear that your arguments are making the case that counter what they're saying. And I will say, it also changes your tone. So I've been in the middle of, for the past 6 months, working against the International Codes Council. And if any of you follow the recent decision by the ICC, who we work very closely with, we're founding partners, we have a very friendly relationship with them, but they just did something that we don't like, and we've been fighting it in the press. We went after our friends in the press. But they just have turned the process by which the International Energy Code is determined. They changed the process by which that happens. They changed it from a code development standard to process to a standard development process. I won't go chapter and verse into it because it's super complicated, but the long and the short of it is it takes people out of the equation and it puts it in the hands of a lot of some powerful special interests, one of which is AIA, because we'll be at the table. But we believe that the governmental officials who actually deal with the codes day in and day out should have a say. And we believe that the home builders should not have as much say and power as they do. And so we took them on and we went hard at them. We called them out in the press, we called them out and said what we thought they were doing. And it was risky because, they're our friends. But sometimes you have to take on those fights, and you need to be really clear about what you're doing and why you're doing it. And your messages need to be on point, because those are the kinds of situations where people they're gonna find a hole, they're gonna find a chink in the armor, and they're gonna come at you. So it's harder. Opposing is always harder. Kind of more fun, though, from my opinion. I like a good fight.
Yeah, Cindy, I guess this is fantastic as always. I think one of the things that can be really difficult when you start getting into any sort of advocacy work or engaging with elected officials is just knowing where to start. And I think you provided some really great input into this. But I guess for our members who are maybe just starting into this or like figuring out where they want to engage, I guess I would love to hear. Is the strategy and the approach the same if you're working at your local city government level versus your state level versus the federal level? I think based off my experience, all of these things are really applicable, but are there ways or suggestions that you have of like how to get started in this so you can start building those competencies and those skill sets, or resources and organizations where you can, or where our members should start to focus on, because it can be really daunting to dip your toes into this. And so what
Yep.
advice or suggestions would you have for people who are, particular members who might just barely be starting out? Like it might be at the university level, it might be in their local neighborhoods. Any tools or resources or advice that you would provide there?
I would, for folks just sort of starting to dip your toe in, my first advice is to listen, and attach yourself to folks who are already leading in the area. When you jump into an issue, a fight, if it's not just a brand new thing, right? If it's something that you're jumping into, there's been a lot of work done probably already, right? And so what you don't want to do is jump in not understanding the strategy. You don't want to jump in screwing up the message, right? Asking for the wrong thing at the wrong time. And so my first advice is find the group that's working on stuff you care about, because that's an avenue for you to come in and be value added in an appropriate way. And what it does for you is it provides you a learning opportunity, the opportunity to start to engage in the conversation so that you can listen and hear what's happening, right? That's how you'll pick up the nuances of what the strategy is. And they'll ask you, do you want to participate in a lobby day? And then they'll help you, right? For example, they'll help you build the talking points. Then you can start to ask questions. And that's how you start to, that type of iterative experience is how you begin to really grasp an issue. Advocacy in some ways is simple. Go out and find your own, whatever your own jam and make it happen, right? But in a lot of ways, it's also, if you get into legislative advocacy, it is more complicated. And it is nuanced, and it is lots of people, and it's lots of people with lots of opinions. And it is, there's legislative strategy. Where does that bill sit in committee? Has it been heard? What's the committee makeup? Does it have a chance of getting passed? Right, blah, blah. I could go on endlessly. So if you're just dipping your toe in the water and just starting to get sort of in the mix, find people who are already doing it and listen and learn. You don't have to take everything they say verbatim, but you can at least use that as an opportunity to sort of get the lay of the land. And that's a really, but actually understanding the lay of the land is a really important political concept as well. You never, ever develop a strategy, a message, or anything around legislative strategy or political strategy without understanding where you are. Understand the lay of the land. Is that helpful?
I was wondering if we could go back to what you said at the very beginning about working across the aisle and in a bipartisan way, especially with what you said about starting where they're at in like such a polarized world that we are in right now. What can you do to start where they're at if you are very far from where they are at personally?
You have to dig, and sometimes you got to dig really deep. I'm not kidding. Sometimes you just really you got to really, unearth something to find some common ground. And the common ground could be that you happen to be a constituent and you live near them, or you went to the same high school that their kids went to, or your son goes to school with their son, or whatever it is, right? Finding the most important thing you can do to connect with somebody is to sort of find the commonality that you have with them. That little tiny bit of humanity, right? That I'm a human and you're a human, and I don't think you're a terrible person. I just, I come in, I want to come in and I want to talk to you about this thing, and maybe we don't agree on everything else, but we can agree on the fact that we both love our community, right? We can agree that we both, we want the world to be a healthy place for kids. We can agree that, students are getting crushed by student debt. We can all agree that that's just a problem. How we solve that problem, maybe we're not in the same place right now, but the goal in bipartisanship is, can we figure out how to get closer, right? We don't always have to be here. We haven't always been this way. I've worked with Republicans for years. I know plenty of them. Right? They're not bad people, right? They don't agree with me on many things. We don't have lots of commonality there, but they're decent people, right? And if you approach anyone, really, if you approach anyone from the perspective of mutual respect and attempting to find something that you can all have some common ground on, and then everything sort of will ripple from. But you don't have to, and you can also, ascribe to we'll agree to disagree, right? And if you say that, you tell somebody you're going to agree to disagree with them, and then you smile, they'll cut you some slack.
And building off that, which I think is really important, like having ran an organization when the Affordable Care Act was implemented, and then having to apply that in my organization, and like navigating through all of that in a state that was the only state that chose to do a hybrid model with affordable care, like soapbox for another time on how that went. But you touch on it just really briefly, that having an advocacy strategy, and really this is something that is not a one-time thing. It's something that you're going to have wins, you're going to have losses, you're going to have successes, you're going to have failures. What advice would you give to our members who maybe just getting involved, and maybe they are really passionate or involved with the groups that they're really passionate with, and gung-ho, everyone is ready to go, and maybe there's not a win. What advice would you have of how to regroup and like keep at it? Because to your point, this is not a one-time thing, right? And we started working on healthcare like when I was at my former organization. We were 5 years in by the time we even got to Affordable Care Act being passed, and there was like tons of meetings that had happened, and we had some things that were really successful and were great, and we had things that we actually were completely didn't work at all, and we got completely railroaded by. So what advice would you give for if you have an issue or a policy that you're really passionate about and it doesn't go the way that you were anticipating? How do you regroup and sort of keep at it? Because it's not a one-time thing in most cases.
I would say a couple of things. One is if you're going to do legislative advocacy, or really kind of advocacy for sort of hard issues of any kind, if you're going to do that, be realistic about what you can win. And when I say be realistic about what you can win, I mean, do your research, right? Is this something that is, has anyone tried this before? Have they, what did they, is there anything you can learn from that experience? And so, because having a realistic mindset about a campaign will help you be more clear-headed about it, right? I mean, I'll tell you just personally, one of the struggles that I have always had is that I'm an optimist. You may have guessed that. I'm an optimist, and I have always, I am always decimated when I lose, because I'm such an optimist. I think I'm going to win everything. Right? So it is just at a personal level. Losing is always super hard for me, because I just get I get all wrapped up in it, even now, after all of these years. But the way that you combat it is, one, understand that that change takes time. be really realistic about it. The other thing I would say is that be planful. And when you are planning, plan for losing, because that will focus them on, right? So plan to win, plan to lose, and have a plan for when you lose, what you're doing with it, right? Nobody, no great effort ever was won like that, ever. It just doesn't work like that. People, to win, you need to bring people with you. Climate is the perfect example of this. I will tell you, I canvassed in the 80s, knocking on doors, talking about climate change, which at the time was called global warming, which at the time we talked about the envelope around the world. I mean, it was weird, but we were talking about that. And this is going back 30 odd years ago. People would say to me, well, I kind of like it when it's warm. Why would I not want it to be warmer? Right? Nobody says that anymore because we're living it. Now, unfortunately, maybe back in the 80s, we were not, our message wasn't as clear as it should have been, and we should have been working a little harder. Maybe we wouldn't be in the position that we're in. But that said, things change over time. So hear me when I tell you, things change if you work hard. But in every campaign that I have ever won, I lost a couple times before it, right? I worked on the Clean Cars Act in Maryland, and it took us 4 years to get emission standards raised in the state of Maryland. That then, because we had a plan for winning and a plan for losing. When we won, we knew that the next step was the global warming bill, which we then got passed 2 years later. And so you have to, it's not about the campaign, it's about the big goals. And big goals don't change. Fighting global warming, there's just strategies inside of that. It's never about the bill, right? Those are mechanisms to solving big problems, right? So understand what you're working for, plan to lose so that you can learn from it and do it better the next time, because change takes a lot of work. And then make sure you debrief. Just a technical thing, debriefing after a loss is really, really important. And be honest about that, the critique, and be really be mindful about what you're learning. And then when you're doing it again the next time, make sure you use what you learned, right? A lot of people make the mistake of doing the debrief, write the notes, just throw them in a drawer, and then they just keep making the same mistakes over and over. Learn from your mistakes. It will make you better.
I don't want
but I want to make sure someone else has a question either. Go ahead, Sarah.
Sorry, and I feel like Carmen and I have been going back and forth, but if anyone does.
Hashtag policy geek. Hashtag policy geek.
Yes, want to make sure everyone has a chance to ask questions. But I also wanted to ask kind of about, and this might be a false comparison, not knowing much about all of this and learning a lot from today. What is more kind of important of like nailing the 15-second elevator speech, or like long-term development of a relationship with an elected official, recognition on a topic or something like that? And maybe how often do those two things compare in the life cycle of advocacy?
Well, I would say that they're both critical, and you have to learn how to chew gum and walk at the same time, right? Having that, being able to distill your messages and be clear and concise is really important. And it will help you, right? Remember like how I was talking about your introduction and being able to use that to make connections to people. That connection is sort of step one in sort of building a relationship. Then you start to talk to them about issues, and then you start to, maybe it's a different issue, or it's always about a certain set of issues. And then the relationship that begins to get built over that time will get better and will get stronger. And the connections that you make are important, but if you're trying to get something across, you're trying to get a point across, frame up your message, know what you're trying to say, because otherwise, it's just really easy to get off topic, even with people you like. and who are on your side. It's just really easy, particularly legislative issues that can be really complicated, right? And sort of technical sometimes, like particularly, I mean, if you're working a campaign and you've got to talk to somebody about making an amendment change, right? We need you to do this and this because it's a really good thing. And the point is, and this and this, but, and then you got to get into this really complicated language about we need an amendment to so and so. Being clear and concise becomes really important.
Yeah, and just building off of this, I will say, particularly at the local level and to a certain extent at the state level, you would be truly stunned. Like the people that staff elected officials' offices, they have this crazy, like nuclear scientific way of remembering people. So like literally the first time I met with one of my local aldermen in Chicago and met with his staff person, the next time I went in there, he's like, oh, hey, you're Karma. You work for Howard Brown. You're on their board. Like it is truly remarkable the level of detail that the staff pay attention to for your elected officials, whether it's your city
stock and trade.
Yeah, like your county officials, your state officials. I think people often underestimate, like, oh, I'm just like an average citizen or I'm just an average person. No one's going to remember me. No one's going to pay attention to me. I think that was one of the biggest things that I learned when I started meeting with my local city officials. It is astonishing how much detail their staff pay attention to and how astonishing that they can actually make the connections and connect the dots to where like I literally have been to events where I've had staff who be like, oh, hey, you're Karma, you worked for Howard Brown. Let me make sure that the insert official here has a chance to connect with you. So don't think just because you're like a student or a citizen that people don't pay attention to that. It is remarkable the level of detail that staff pay attention to at a variety of levels, and remarkable if you were consistent and in front of them. The amount of leverage and connection that gets to you. Like I used to have coffee with our two legislative officials like on a monthly basis because I was in front of their staff enough times. They're like, hey, we should get you on Feigenholt's calendar, or we should get you in front of Alderman such and such. So don't underestimate that. It is being connected with staff is really, really, really powerful. And
and staff are powerful, right? Yeah. That's the key there, is that not only do they know things and they have the ability to connect you, but in a lot of instances, they do the work. So I don't know if you happen to catch 2 weeks ago, last week, maybe, I can't remember anymore, but the Energy and Commerce Committee released the Energy Futures Act. It's the big climate bill that just got released out of the House of Representatives. Well, that bill was released by Chairman Frank Pallone from the Energy and Commerce Committee, who my husband works for, who runs the subcommittee on energy and the environment. My husband and his team wrote that bill. Frank Pallone didn't have anything to do with that bill. And I will tell you, if you want to have anything to do with that bill and improving it, the person to get to, my husband and his staff. Not Frank, right? Staff are hugely important. They are the real power behind the legislature. And getting to know them, particularly at the state and the local level, I will tell you, that's good. That's gold. Building those relationships, you can get a lot done that way.
And they're basically all the same age as our members as well, so that also helps.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I do have a question, I guess, about timing. I've always wondered, are there certain times to kind of capitalize on a time to advocate? I wonder, like, is an election year even more important than maybe a non-election year to get kind of your points of view across, to get across that you are a constituent, please like make these changes for me? Or is it really just every day pushing, and every day is kind of like the work just needs to keep moving forward?
I would say yes, it is every day, because they don't think about what you think about every day, right? They're thinking about all kinds of stuff. But the timing is important because you need to understand where they are, right? So if you're trying to, if they're in an election, just from a practical perspective, if we're 2-3 months out of an election, you can guarantee that there's no work being done except election and campaign. They're not, so you can talk to them about whatever issue you want, and they're going to pay attention to you, and then they're going to say, don't forget to vote, because that's really the only thing that they're thinking about at that particular moment in time. In the beginning of the session, those present, so the timing, right? So right now, AIA is in the process of, because we're at a brand new Congress, right? This is where understanding politics and how government works, this is where this becomes really important. So right now, we're at the beginning of a new Congress. We had an election. Congress, the last 116th is no more. January 20th, I can't remember the date, I think it was the 20th. The new Congress, the 117th Congress, which will go for 2 years, started. So we've got new members of Congress, they reorganize, there's new people on committees. We have a new president, we have a new administration, we've got all kinds of new, agency people, like all of a sudden, everything in Washington, D.C. flipped on its head, right? Totally different. So what we're doing now, it would be foolish for us to go in and say, we really need you to be working on SB 58, because that's what we were saying in the 116th. Well, SB 68 doesn't exist in the new Congress because it hasn't been introduced yet. So what we're doing now is we're working on making sure that bills that we were working on in the last Congress, the Titus bill, for example, that will has correct the executive order design mandate problem that we had with the Trump administration. So we want to make sure that that bill comes over to the 117th and gets introduced again. So that's what we're working. So it wouldn't make sense to send a bunch of people in there saying, oh, we hope that you support the Titus bill. What bill is that? Right? Because it doesn't have a number, it doesn't exist, right? So now it's about lobbying the Titus to get her to reintroduce the bill. So understanding where you are in the cycle is important. I do this with state legislators, state components, the AIA state components all the time. They will have a bill before committee. And the bill is going to get heard and they want to send out an action alert. So I do a lot of action alerts for people. I write them and I get them sent out and I send them out to our members. So they'll say, oh, we want to get this out because this bill is going to be heard in committee in the Senate. And so we want to send this action alert. Well, who do you want to just, what's the name of the committee? Well, we were just going to send it to all the members. So why would you send an action alert to somebody in a district where their member's not on that committee, right? So why would you do that? You don't want to do that because then you're just confusing people. Please write to your senator because they have the ability to make sure that we don't pass this bill out of committee. Oh, but my member's not on that committee, right? Now all you've done is confuse your activists. Bad idea. You confuse an activist and they stop being activists for you because they think you're dumb. Why did you ask me to send an email to somebody and I can't send it because they're not on the committee, right? Understanding your timing, where you are and what you're trying to do is really, really important. And all of that has to do with knowing your government, knowing where the bill is, knowing what's possible, understanding the lay of the land, knowing what time of year it is, so that and what things are happening at the exact moment in time. Did I answer your question? Did I get it? Yeah.
Well, thank you. Such a great question. We do have about 10 minutes left. If anyone has any last questions they want to ask before we wrap it up, now's your chance.
Yeah, I had a quick question. I'm about to lobby actually in like 2 weeks. So it's kind of nice to hear someone's perspective on lobbying with a different org. But I was curious to know how often AIA or AIS does lobby, like if they work by themselves or they work with like other orgs, and kind of how students can get involved. I know you touched on it a little bit during your presentation, but I wanted to hear more about that.
So yes, AIA, well, we lobby all the time. We have actually paid lobbyist consultants that we work with, who work for us, and we have a lobbying federal team. And we activate our members all the time. Because we advocate at the federal level, it's it's legislative engagement on politics all the time, right? There's always something going on to be talking about. And there's always something to be, because the federal government is so huge. So we're always busy. At the state level, that changes because every state has a different legislative cycle. So in Maryland, for example, it's 3 months, and in Pennsylvania, it's full time, right? So they're all different. You have to kind of sort of figure that out. We engage folks in 2 ways, either at the state level through the state component, where they're looking at either the local level or the state, and then we do lobby days, and mostly the type of advocacy we do at the federal level, which is pretty common, is I call it astroturf, but it's it's not grassroots, right? It's that sort of, send in emails, and it's sort of that real big sort of mass communication stuff. So it's really advocacy by force, right? It's a little bit different than you would do it at the state. I actually prefer state level lobbying because it's a lot more fun. Karma, do you want to jump in on what you guys do?
Yeah, I was also just want to make sure to make a point that so you're a 501c6 and we're a 501c3. So it's awesome if you could touch on, because there are some restrictions on the 501c6 versus the 501c3 in terms of lobbying activities versus advocacy activities. Like the IRS tax status of a nonprofit have some restrictions on lobbying, like nonprofits can absolutely do it, but there's more restrictions in terms of where we spend our money at that. So it'd be great, Cindy, if you could just touch on that at a high level in terms of, because the language with lobbying and advocacy and becomes important, and it's nuanced between the 501c6s and the 501c3s.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I lobbied for a C3, but yeah, it is different, and you can, right? I mean, one, as a human, you can do whatever you want. We have free speech in this country, and as a member, you can do anything you want. How Karma organizes and gets her members to engage on issues is slightly different, because she's a 501c3, and what that means is that they're like a public nonprofit. They have, so their charter, and the reason that the IRS designates them a 501c6 is that they bring more to the sphere that is for the public good. 501c4 organizations are organizations like Google Conservation Voters. They engage their members and they get them involved, and lobbying is absolutely key, and activism is key to what they do. They are often non-profits, but if they were to make a profit, they'd have to pay taxes. If you make more money on the C3 side, you don't need to pay taxes on that because you are tax exempt. So that's why this is all IRS. If you're a PAC, a political action committee, you work under a completely different set of rules, and you are there to engage in politics, right? So ARCA-PAC is about candidates and elections. We give away money. Our money is not tax exempt, and it is, we're very restricted in how we can use that because it's done for political purposes. So yeah, you do have to be, you have to be a little bit careful about, as a C3, you have to be a little bit more careful, and you have to make sure that you have to do the public test, which is there's only a certain amount of energy, money, and resources that the organization can spend on lobbying. So you said you were going to be lobbying for somebody who is it? Can you say?
Yeah, I'm lobbying with Citizens Climate Lobby about.
Oh, climate?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's about a carbon pricing bill.
Oh, good. Oh, interesting. That's the new cap and trade, carbon pricing. That's an inside political joke. I live with a guy who was an energy lobbyist and now works for the Energy and Commerce Committee. We make energy jokes. So, and he lost cap and trade. So.
Yeah, so going back to Moit's question, like there are some restrictions on what we can do in terms of lobbying. So most of the work that we do is on the advocacy front. I think the last time I looked at the IRS guidelines, 501c3s can spend up to 10% of their annual income on lobbying. It's not something that we've actively engaged in on the lobbying front, and we work really closely with our partners at AIA and NCARB to be able to add a voice to the activities that they currently have going on. One of the things that we've been talking to the board about, and Aaron and Sarah can jump in here as well, we have our AIS public policy document, which is very comprehensive and very robust. And so figuring out for our members, what are those issues that are most important on? How are we organizing the event that AIA graciously sponsors for us with Hill Day? Like, what are the topics or the issues that we feel are most important for us to weigh in on? And then how are we building, to Cindy's point, like how are we building a coalition that can go in on the topics that are important? So I'll use student loan debt as an example, right? Like as a practice profession, being able to go in on a Hill Day with students who are in medical school, with students who are in law school, students who are in architecture, et cetera, thinking holistically about the issues where we can build a coalition. So it's not just our architecture students and members, they can say like, hey, student loan is an issue, but being able to build a coalition around, hey, you know, medical students are facing similar debt, law students are facing similar debt. So the way that we've thought about advocacy in the short time I've been here is how are we putting the weight of our membership and the coalition of our membership behind issues that we can get traction with, that we can have enough people to say, hey, this is something you should pay attention to. And then also, how are we adding our voice to coalitions that already exist to be able to amplify what it is that they're saying? I think there's a lot of opportunity here, which is why we're so grateful that Cindy was able to join us. And we've been able to have a couple of conversations now about advocacy, because there's a lot of ways to get from point A to point B. And the more you can engage with coalitions and other organizations that have a similar mission, even though you may come at it from different lenses or different perspectives, it just gives you, you know, it's one thing to go and be like, hey, there's 10 of us that want to talk to insert elected official here, versus, hey, there's, you know, 5,000, 7,000 of us that want to get in front of you here. So not sure I answered your question exactly, but thinking about this comprehensively and holistically in terms of, you know, where can we make the most impact? What is that long-term vision? How are we able to engage other coalitions and other partners that we can either lead the charge on, or that we can contribute to and help them amplify their message in a way where we're getting traction and getting visibility that we might not be able to get to on our own, which is why AIA's support and participation in Hill Day has been really powerful, because we've been able to plug into issues that they've already been working on. And at the same time, we're able to bring a perspective from our members that helps amplify what it is that they're already doing.
You know, I would add to that one, I think that to the question of how do you get started, I think this sort of applies to this particular piece, which is if you're going to start jumping out into working in coalition, this is one of those places where listening and learning from others who are already in the sphere, and student debt, at least specifically, there's a lot of folks out there working on this stuff, right? And there are a lot of folks who believe that we're at that time right now where we're hitting a point, an inflection point where we could actually see some movement on that. And so my advice on the student debt front, at least, is that AIA could be a really, AIS could be a really powerful voice inside and additive to another coalition, right? Making sure that you understand what you're bringing to the table will be really clear, and being clear about that would be really important. But it is much easier than starting from scratch. So I think that's important. And then I had another point that I forgot. So we'll just go with that.
No, thank you. And thank you, Karma, for kind of explaining how we're doing things at the AIS. As she mentioned, we have done a Student Hill Day in the past. We had our first one in 2019. I don't know if anyone here was able to participate in that. I did, and it was a really great experience. And I also recently participated in AIA's Hill Day, which was virtual, which was very, very different, but still a really great experience. And if you have the opportunity to do so, It's not only so important to participate, but it was also really empowering to get to talk to congresspersons and bring my voice there. So we are just about at time. Cindy, thank you so much for the presentation and for engaging in this conversation. Just so great. And thank you all for coming and for bringing your questions. If you enjoyed the session, I really hope you will spread the word. We do have more Thrive webinars coming up, and a few more on advocacy. The webinar on March 24th will be about advocacy within the AIS. We'll be hearing from our AIS advocates and our advocacy committees on what they've been working on all year. As it's Advocacy Month, the month of March, so I hope you've been following along on the Advocacy Instagram and keeping up with all of the efforts that we at the national office and our members are putting out there. So just want to thank you all one more time, and especially Cindy for giving us her time and her knowledge. Thank you for coming.
Thank you guys for being here.